Good morning and happy Friday to anyone who is watching this conversation from whatever part of the world. Welcome
Mhm.
to yet another one of Chiromo Hospital Group's live sessions right here on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. Tell us where you're listening from, engage us on the comment section, and feel free to ask questions. So, we're here today with a very interesting topic, and we're talking about unhealthy coping. And you would wonder why we talk about this. A lot of us, we were just having a conversation right before this, go through this. This is a daily life experience. There are moments where we find ourselves coping, but quite unfortunately, not in the healthiest of ways. So, we're
Mm.
here to guide you on what unhealthy coping looks like, and as well as direct you to healthier ways of coping. So I am joined by a beautiful, beautiful panel today. I'll follow my grid in introducing the panel today. Let me start with the one to my right, Gadoni Mbogwa. Allow me to give you a chance to say hi to the audience and tell us about yourself.
All right. Greetings from wherever it is you're joining us from. My name is Gadoni Mbogwa. I'm a senior clinical psychologist at Chiromo Hospital Group, as well as the head of digital relations, and a wellness therapist, a mindset coach, and an individual who is passionate about trauma healing and empowering the youth. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gadoni. We're glad to have you here. Always nice having you on board. Let me go to the one who follows. Right next is Katie. Katie, please say hi to the audience and tell us what you do. Over to you, Katie.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? How are you mentally today? Yeah, and what do you understand by that word? So, I am also a clinical psychologist at Chiromo Hospital Group. I'm also involved in a lot of wellness activities. Yes, healthy minds, healthy brains, all the way. And it's very interesting that we're having this discussion on a Friday. I see what you did there, Pendo. Yeah.
I hadn't seen that. Good one there, Kathleen. Nice. Okay, so
Yeah.
let me move forward to Linus. Linus is the only gent in this conversation today. We are looking forward to hearing your insights, Linus. Let me give you a chance to say hi to the audience and tell us about yourself. Over to you, Linus.
Uh, Thank you, Pendo. My name is Linus Otieno. I am a hospital psychologist. I work with Kathleen in the corporate wellness department. I'm also passionate about sensitizing people about mental health, especially young people and men specifically. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us, Linus. As you can see, today we are packed with a full Chiromo Hospital Group team. So this is what to expect when you come through our doors. So let me go straight into the conversation. And Kathleen started by contextualizing it. It's on a Friday.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we know what happens. I was saying this the other day. There are a lot of um, memes online that go around about how Kenya is really good when it comes to, for lack of a better way to put it, downing bottles. But at the same time, right here in Kenya, we know the impact of that. We've seen what's been reported, we've seen the downside of it. And it's important that you talk about these things, understanding how this affects us. But let me start with this unhealthy coping. Let me start with you, Gadoni. How do you understand the term unhealthy coping?
All right. Thank you, Pendo, for that. So basically, unhealthy coping mechanisms are strategies that individuals usually employ to deal with situations that are uncomfortable to them. This could be situations that are difficult, stressful. It could be some form of emotional pain that an individual is going through. But what makes them unhealthy is because whereas they might seem to work and provide a little bit of relief over a short period of time or for that duration, ultimately they are harmful to the overall well-being of that individual.
Uh-huh. Thank you so much for that, Gadoni. Let me go to you, Kathleen. How often, how normal is it for us to turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms? I want to contextualize this because that we are doing this conversation as part of the Tufunguke initiative, and
Mhm.
Tufunguke is set for us to have open, candid conversations about day-to-day experiences. How
Mhm.
normal is it for someone to turn into an unhealthy coping mechanism?
Oh, Pendo, you might be surprised that it is very normal. In fact, it is it's very normal because it's consciously and unconsciously applied. It is something that provides instant gratification,
Yeah.
and you do not calculate the consequences that come up as a result. And being the fact that they are unhealthy, they have negative consequences, albeit. So it is very, very easy because we think that they are quite automatic. They're automated per se because they are linked to our fight, flight, or freeze survival mode of everyday living. It's very, very, very easy. You and I both are within this category. And as much as we are mental wellness advocates, we are therapists, we are also prone to this. So long as you have a human DNA strand, then you are very much at a risk.
Mhm. Okay, okay. Well, we're talking about this term, unhealthy coping, but we want to understand exactly what it is. Let me come over to you, Linus. What are some of the examples of unhealthy coping mechanisms?
Um, Off of the top of my head, I can think of a few. First of all, I think they're not obviously they're not easy to identify always. Some of them are easy to identify. For example, we've talked about alcohol consumption, something that actually does work for some people, and they can tell you that it helps me, but it does not address the problem that, for example, most people drink because they're stressed, but it does not address the stress. It might provide temporary reprieve when you're drinking, but when you wake up in the morning with a hangover, your problems are still going to be there. If not, maybe probably even have compounded if you spend too much money consuming alcohol. Maybe you're having financial stress. So consuming alcohol, isolating yourself from people instead of connecting to people. We know that first of all, the single most predictive factor for happiness is the number of deep and meaningful connections that you have with other people. So when you isolate yourself, you're doing something that is opposite to what is optimal, connecting with other people. So self isolation. Some people, if we've talked about alcohol, some people may resort to other drugs, like cigarettes, which is a stimulant, can help you feel focused, can help you feel more in control. But the overall negative consequences of smoking cigarettes, especially on the long term, will outweigh the positives that you're going to experience on the immediate. Right now, in the digital era, we talk about social media consumption. We spend an average of 6 to 8 hours of our time every day scrolling through TikTok and Instagram. So people also use social media to cope, just scrolling through social media, time that can be used for something else. And we know that although it's not that a majority of the information that we consume on the internet is negative, just like Kathleen had mentioned earlier, our brains are wired to focus on negative information. So when you're consuming TikTok for 6 hours a day, although 70% of the information might be positive, your brain is going to focus on the negative information, which is not healthy in the long run. Yeah. So those are a few examples that I can mention, maybe off of the top of my head.
Thank you so much for that. And you've cut across different ways, different dimensions in terms of unhealthy coping. I want us to stay a bit in this bit because a lot of us cope one way or another. And I want us to focus on this because coping is a very important part when it comes to mental health. In the definition of mental health, according to WHO, one of the factors there is your ability to cope with day-to-day stressors. And
That's
that's
right.
what we do. Quite unfortunately, we don't always do it in the right way. Let me come to you, Gadoni, based of your practice. In addition to what Linus has said, are there any other coping mechanisms you've seen that clearly fall under unhealthy coping mechanisms? despite not them feeling like unhealthy coping mechanisms at first glance to our clients.
Right, right. I could think of avoidance, yeah, as a way of coping. Sometimes kwa ground, vitu kwa ground. Sometimes just coming into terms with, for example, the emotional pain. Let's say you're going through a heartbreak. Sometimes coming into that reality can be so painful, and we have people who will consciously just decide, no, I don't want to deal with this for now, because all you want to do maybe is cope, go to work, and have a productive day without the realization of you denying that problem rather than facing it could actually become habitual in the end. So you just keep shelving problems. Another one would be self-harm. I think self-harm is more in black and white, and especially literally amongst younger people. So you'll find that because of whatever it is, the kids in school, primary or high school, they are going through, then they begin to slowly try and self-harm, maybe trying to balance what they're feeling internally with externally. And sometimes you can also see that progression, like it graduates from arms, then it goes to thighs. So they're also, it means they are aware they are doing it, but they're still continuing to do it and graduating to now trying to hide it. There's this thing that it's a social media term, or a more today's generation term, that is called bed rotting. Okay, so bed rotting is when you choose just to stay in bed the whole day, 2 3 days, without actually leaving the bed. Okay, so it's a way of coping, in the sense that sometimes when your social battery is down, it's actually okay, it's healthy to stay indoors and try and replenish that. But then if you're not really aware the impact to which it's having on you, then that habit can continue over a long period of time, and then gets to a space where you're now avoiding the daily responsibilities that you're supposed to do. So that falls under what Linus had talked about, isolating and withdrawing. Of course, excessive screen time. I wanted to add that if you're watching this and you have children, the recommended duration of our 24-hour window period is 2 hours. And that's 2 hours for all digital tools, whether it's TV, tablets, phone, whatever it is, 2 hours in a 24-hour period. Because behavior is learned, and we are all born with a blank slate. But one of the coping mechanisms, I dare say, and this can be controversial, is sometimes you'll find that parents will put on cocomelon for their children from when they are months old, okay, just to try and entertain them. But I'm just here to bring to the attention that behavior is learned. Okay, so then they begin to form a dependence over a period of time. By the time that child is 5 years, not even talking about by the time they get to teenagehood, you can imagine how much dependence already this person has talked about, and we'll talk about the impact of some of these things really on their mental health. Then that also reminds me about escapism. Okay, the mindless scrolling. There's a category of people who are gaming. You'll find that you're gaming so much you're not even eating, you're not picking calls, or you're binging on a TV show, for example, that you didn't even get to sleep, but now it becomes kind of a daily habit. One thing that I have also observed from experience and the clients that I've seen over a period, over the 9 years of practice, is risky behavior. Okay, so risky behavior can either be sex, you're using sex and safe sex, but then it might look like you're just jumping from one relationship to another. But when you dig deep into some of those behaviors, then you'll realize that they could be self-sabotaging behaviors. I'm thinking about, no pun intended, but I'm really thinking about the guys who ride motorbikes. It's not the riding of the motorbikes, but yeah, in the sense that you have no gear, you have no helmet, you have no body kit, and you're there cruising at insane speeds, that can also be categorized as risky behavior, because it just takes something so small for that life to end or even worse. So some of those thrill-seeking tendencies could also be really just categorized as just a way of coping, because both Kathleen and Linus talked about the instant gratification, the relief. And when you're talking about relief, we are saying that, it's just that spill of dopamine at that, particular time. So even some of these thrill-seeking behaviors, they are going to trigger that. So it kind of looks, this is just for fun, this is just me enjoying my youth. But really, really, we need to ask ourselves those impact, deeper.
Mhm.
Yeah. And of
Wow.
course, the other ones that, like eating,
Mhm.
shopping,
Mm.
for the
Mhm.
ladies,
Mhm.
yeah. So, yes.
I like that, and perhaps I don't. I think I'll just bounce it back to you, Gadoni, because a lot of the examples you've given us sound like mundane activities: watching TV, sleeping, eating,
Yeah.
transport. They sound like day-to-day activities.
They're daily, yeah. Yeah.
At what point do these, which should be harmless activities, turn to unhealthy cooking? Where do we draw the line?
I like that. That's really a good question. I think if you're using any of these activities to deal with a problem, and then
Mm.
it graduates from, I just want to do this. I just want, for example, to rest. Okay. It graduates to, I'm going to be using this. And sometimes it's an unconscious process. Okay. I'm using this to escape. So if you reevaluate, if you're doing like an internal audit of your life and you realize that I never went back to address that issue that I was coping with. And this behavior has now become, has preoccupied my day-to-day living, then at that point I
Mm.
think you can begin to question, um, is this still a normal daily activity, or is it something else? Okay,
Mhm.
so we are talking about the increase in the number of times that you're doing it. We are talking about your mind, preoccupation of your thoughts. You're just
Mhm.
constantly thinking, I can't wait to go, and take that ride, or I can't wait for the week for the weekend, or to go binge, or any minute that you have in between your patients, you just want to scroll, or if something happens, you just want to go online and make a big order, even at the expense of your financial stability. So we are
Mm.
just evaluating what is the impact this has on my life, on my overall well-being. Is this behavior helping me be a better version? Is it contributing to healthy living, for example? Or is this behavior actually detrimental? It's becoming like a problem. It's becoming detrimental to my health, my mental health. Then I guess at that
Mm.
point, we can say that there's an escalation, there's a dependence that has been formed.
Mm.
Thank you so much for that, Kathoni. What I'm hearing is everything in moderation. As long as it's going past
Right.
certain limits, it's definitely a concern. And if it's affecting other aspects of you, instead of building, instead of it being constructive, then there's a question mark there. So, to all of you who are listening to this conversation, perhaps that's a way that you could use to monitor some of the habits you're picking up. Am I still within healthy limits, or am I leaning towards unhealthy limits? And to move over to you, Linus, when it comes to unhealthy coping mechanisms, and we've given a range of examples, why do you think it's easy for us to fall back to these unhealthy coping mechanisms?
Thank you very much, Pendo, for the good question. I think for me, the simple answer would be that they're very attractive as an alternative to. They're easily available. they're readily available within the environment, and also most unhealthy coping mechanisms are very attractive. With Gadonia has spoken very well about social media, screen time. Screen time is very attractive as a coping mechanism. You know that the people that created the gadgets or the social media applications, they do it for with one purpose in mind, to get you to spend as much time as you possibly can on the gadgets. So the colors, you work in the digital department of our hospitals. I think you know also about the AI, especially that TikTok is using, which is very aggressive, that knows you actually better than you know yourself. And there's even talk about it being banned in places like in the United States of America because of the impact that is having on young boys and girls. So it's very attractive, very difficult to get off. Alcohol is also very attractive as something, as a coping mechanism. I think for anybody that has consumed alcohol, especially with a group of friends, you know that alcohol does enhance the social effect. It's more fun to have a conversation with a group of friends when you're having a bottle of beer or something like that. So it's very attractive. But when you look at the other side of alcohol, for example, I was looking at some statistics recently that talked about 60% of all cases where people kill other people happen when the perpetrator is under the influence of alcohol, and 40% of people that are killed when somebody's under the influence of alcohol. So we are talking about something that is very attractive on one side, that does help. It's also a very good social sedative for people with social anxiety. When you drink, it sort of brings your inhibition down. If you're a man and you're afraid of approaching a girl, it's easier to approach a girl and shoot your shot, for example. So it's easy to fall back to, because to a certain degree it also works. But I think for me the key thing is that it's very attractive, it's very readily available, and also it's also very easy to repeat the process. We tend to resort to behaviors that are easy to repeat, so quick repeatability may also be a factor. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Wow, thank you for that. And one of the interesting things that I had, and it got me thinking, is that behind the marketing campaigns, for lack of a better way to put it, to push some of these coping and healthy coping mechanisms, is someone who has studied human behavior, and they know that it's easy to draw attention towards that. So it's one of those very scary things that once you think about it, it gets you, thinking about it. But I like the way you put it. Simply, it's attractive. It's very easy for your mind to think of that. I want to go
Actually,
deeper. Uh
sorry,
huh. Please.
when Lina said that word attractive, it's reminded me of how this thing that has been going on social media, the way Kenyans are at the top of the list of the people who take a lot of alcohol, who drink a lot of alcohol. And it's really been trending everywhere, and every other country is saying, Kenyans. So it looks like kind of a flex. It's kind of like a cool thing. Yeah. And I can only imagine how many other people who can't wait, to go and try this cool thing. I'm thinking about the packaging of those things like Velo or vapes. We've graduated to even making some of these things non-scented. Yeah. So therefore now even younger people feel a little bit safer to use them, only because it's harder for them to be found out. Um, and it's actually quite a sad space, or a sad reality that we are dealing with, uh, today. Yeah. So I'm really glad we are having these conversations, and just to challenge people to continue having these more in-depth conversations from home. Yeah, from the home
I,
environment.
I, to- I totally agree with you, Gadoni. We seem to be a drinking nation. Alcohol is the only drug that if you don't consume in Kenya, people are going to think that there's something wrong with you. Your friends are going to ask you, what's wrong? Why are you not drinking? But although we do not want to demonize alcohol consumption, we know that according to studies, that even the tiniest amount of alcohol consumed more than once a week, in the long run, it's going to affect you negatively. So if you can drink moderately and it's not affecting your health, then we can't say anything about that. But according to studies, at least we can tell you for a fact that even the smallest amount of alcohol consumed more than once a week, in the long run, is going to have some impact on your mental and your physical health in general. Yeah, so I totally agree with you, Gavin.
Wow. Thank you for wrapping that up, Linus. And I want to also engage you, Casey, a bit on the same topic. And this is where we want to look at how these unhealthy coping mechanisms come into the larger conversation of mental health. How would you say that when it comes to unhealthy coping mechanisms, how do they worsen, exacerbate mental health issues? Over to you, Katrina.
All right, thank you for that question. I feel like the answer to that question lies within the very definition of mental health. So, according to WHO, it begins at the individual level. It is their status of well-being, on how well they know themselves. So, there's an aspect of self-awareness, and when you're able to realize your abilities, you'll be able to deal with the normal life stressors or normal life stressors, be they the negative or the positive. Yeah. So it the catch is, or rather the catchphrase is in there, coping. So in the very definition of mental health, we look at the end of the day, despite the fact that we have these distressful situations or positively, eustressed situations, am I still productive? Am I still making a contribution to the community? Because if I sit down the whole day and watch a series and at the risk of my sleeping time, it will have a negative consequence on my effectivity at work the next day. Will I meet my deliverables? Will I meet my household, deliverables or my social deliverables? And then it shows us that we have a way of dealing, or rather the coping mechanisms that we employ, be they healthy or unhealthy, they have an effect on our productivity, which will be a measure. The output will definitely showcase our productivity levels. So within that very definition, it gives us a continuum of our mental health status, and they're normally four. So we have the healthy, whereby you are meeting your targets as far as the very many hats you're wearing are concerned. Are you a parent? Are you holding down a job? Are you a spouse of someone? Are you someone's friend? Are you in a chama or a circle? Are you still meeting your deliverables despite the fact that maybe you lost some money, you did a bad investment, and financially you're struggling, but you still need to meet your chama deliverables. You still need to go to work despite the fact that I had a bad investment and I'm feeling somewhat about it. So the catch is in the coping, because after the healthy, we have now the stress. So the way I do, or rather the way I employ my strategies, will maybe predispose me, or rather exacerbate the situation and get me to a struggle phase. So unhealthy coping strategies, in the long run or gradually, predispose us to starting to struggle. You start to struggle to meet your deliverables at the end of the day. I drank so much, I have a honey. I woke up maybe in the afternoon, it's on Monday. What am I gonna do? Am I even going to go to work? It will have a ripple effect. The way you interact with your spouse, maybe you might be having a short fuse that specific day. Maybe your child might try and approach you and ask you what is happening, but you might end up withdrawing. You might end up putting your phone on flight mode, simply because I chose to overindulge in something or deal with this issue in a negative or rather unhealthy coping way. So I start struggling to cover up. And if I do not realize that I'm struggling, then I'll come to a crisis phase. Now, crisis phase, oftentimes when you oscillate there for quite a while, it becomes a perfect breeding ground for a mental illness, because now you will start thinking differently about yourself, your efficiency. You'll start questioning your efficiency per se, as far as the very many hats you're wearing are concerned. You'll start having negative self-talk because I'm not dealing with things properly. I learned it in a different way from the way I've been brought up. So it impacts your wellness, the status of your health, your mental health negatively. So those four states, it is easy to go back to the healthy status if I healthily cope with those stressors. But if I cope with them and in an unhealthy manner, I will slip into struggle and in crisis risk. And now we have mental health issues, which have a way of graduating to becoming a mental illness within a specific time frame. So if I bed rot for 2 weeks, it puts me at a risk physically and mentally. I'm not getting enough sunlight. It has a ripple on my physical health. It has a ripple on my mental health. It has a ripple on my functions, my productivity levels, my fruitfulness. And then now we can confidently say that if this has been happening for 2 weeks to a month, we have a mental illness that is interfering with our productivity as an individual is concerned.
Wow, thank you so much, Kathleen, for laying that out for us. You can clearly see how it starts from a seemingly harmless endeavor to just say, I'll stay in bed for 3/4 of my leave period, and how it morphs into something more concerning. So I like how you put that out for us. It's a whole continuum from healthy to mental illness, and with that outline, you can gauge where you probably are. And you mentioned something very interesting: self-awareness. We there's this. I'm one of those people who believe that deep down we know when whatever we're doing is not on the right track. Deep down. Sometimes, yes, we struggle with the aspect of coming into terms with it, but deep down, there's a voice that tells us, I don't think we're doing well. And that's where self awareness comes in. So, when you do an audit of how you've been, where could you place yourself in that continuum that Kathleen has just outlined for us? So that's for you, to everyone who's listening to this conversation. Do a quick check, do a quick audit, and see where you're lying on that continuum. And remember that the aspect of being very genuine with yourself plays a huge role in this process. Now, we're not going to talk about the positive coping mechanisms today, particularly because we've set out another discussion for positive coping mechanisms next week. So we want you to actually come back and listen to that one. We'll outline options of positive coping mechanisms, how you can pick them, and so on and so forth. But for today, we're working on highlighting and talking more about negative coping mechanisms. And I'm seeing that you're having very good interaction from our comment section. We have Stephen who is saying the attractive bit of coping mechanisms like mpango akando or alcohol, like enjoy responsibly. So you see how the words that are used to back some of habits and how they affect us. And he's actually asking a very interesting question. Athletes, diet and exercise, could it get unhealthy? Linus, very recently you had a very good interaction with people in this field, athletes. I'd like to direct this question to you. Is there a point where diet and exercise can get unhealthy? Sorry, were you muted? Thank you.
I forgot to unmute. Oh, the answer is yes and no. Diet and exercise. First of all, one of the first things that I recommend to my clients when I see them in therapy is exercise, because for me, and I stand to be corrected, exercise is the only treatment that I can recommend to anyone that does not have any side effects. Medication has side effects, even including Panadol has side effects. We have third generation antipsychotic medication that are very good with very limited side effects, but they still have side effects. There's even talk right now of therapy having some side effects, especially if you see a therapist that does not follow evidence-based treatment plans like we do in Chiroma Hospital Group. So therapy with a bad therapist can also have side effects, but exercise does not have side effects. although exercise does not have side effects, there's something that we call excessive exercise. So even a good thing when done excessively is going to affect you negatively. So when you exercise excessively, we know that I'm not really a fitness expert, but you need to take rests in between your exercise routines. You should not exercise 7 days a week straight. There's also maybe a stipulated amount of hours that you should work out on a given day. So exercise is good. Exercise does not have side effects, but an excessive amount of exercise is also not going to be good for you, not just mentally, but your body, because your body also has limits. We've seen those videos also on social media of people injuring themselves while they're exercising. So you also stand risk of doing that if you do it excessively. Diet also is good. I'm not a dietitian. It's not within my jurisdiction to talk about diet. But I would imagine that a dietitian would also tell you that there's also dangers of diet. Like something that is also that has become very very popular on social media right now is the carnivore diet. I'm sure you've heard about it, or the lion diet, where people are staying away from all kinds of food and only eating meat. And it's been recommended by some people, including a famous psychologist called Dr. Jordan Peterson and his daughter. They've had history of autoimmune illnesses, and they've decided to stay away from any other kind of food. They're only eating meat and cheese, and they've restricted their diet. But we know that, but it's we would not advise you to jump onto that kind of a bandwagon without talking to your dietitian or to your doctor. So speak to your doctor, speak to your dietitian, speak to your nutritionist, because they are the professionals and they know what to do, and they can advise you also based on your body type, based on your health in general. So dieting is something that can be dangerous, especially if you do it without following medical advice or advice from the relevant professionals. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Linus, for addressing that. As he said, a lot of these things are you able to engage someone who could guide you on how to do it in the right way. So there are people who are trained. This is their field to know how to go through this. So engage someone. We get a lot of insights online, but what you forget is that these people, rather the insights that you have online, there's a huge gap between that and your history, your body composition, your experiences. So that gap by itself is very important in terms of tailoring any approach for you. So I want to conclude this conversation. Can you allow me to engage you in this one because it's something you mentioned, the bit on self-awareness. What role does that play in terms of us identifying unhealthy coping mechanisms as we wrap this conversation up?
Um, Thank you, Pendo, for that. I'm really enjoying the conversation. It's sad that time is not on our side. First of all, allow me to start by saying that, allow me to start by demystifying that self awareness is not just knowing. I think it's like a language out here where people keep throwing around that word, like I'm self aware, I'm so self aware, right? But I generally think, and this is also a bit of a personal opinion. I've not seen a study that specifically says that, but I usually look at it that if you just know only, then that's only 30%. The 70% is the action part of it. So it's not enough just to know. Yeah. But what is it that you need to do? So the actionable part of it. So without um, further ado, I just want to say that self-awareness really does play quite a huge and crucial role in terms of identifying some of the unhealthy coping mechanisms that we have. Um, Number one, are you able to identify, for example, the patterns that you have formed? Because quitting a habit is very, very hard. Okay. The learning part of it, I kind of look at it as going down the hill. You're just rolling, but the unlearning and relearning something new is quite an uphill task. So if you can, then you can start by not engaging in those unhealthy coping mechanisms. So it will play a big role in terms of being able to identifying your patterns. It will play a big role because with self-awareness also comes that evaluation. Katie has talked to us about that. So also when you're evaluating yourself, I want you to critically go and check what is the root cause of this. What are those problems? What are those things that trigger me? Okay, to go towards this kind of behavior. And when you're able to identify some of those things, then I think then it's easier to begin the journey of, okay, what else now? What do I need to do? How do I unlearn this and relearn something new? Yeah, so it does play a crucial role um, in identification of the unhealthy coping mechanisms. Yeah.
Mhm. Oh, thank you so much, Gathoni, for mentioning that. One thing that stuck with me is that 30% knowing is not enough. We need to put in the work. And I feel like this is a statement that I always say in every conversation that you have. You still need to put in the work. You still need to put in the
Yes.
work. So let's remember that knowing is part of it, but there are also things that you need to do to support the information that you have. Um, we really appreciate having you in this conversation, Gathani. I know we might lose you before we finish the conversation, so that is okay. We really appreciate your insights so far. And we look forward to actually having you in other conversations moving forward. So, yeah, that is Gathani Mbogwa for you. We
Thank
look
you.
forward
Maybe I
to
can add one more thing.
please do.
There's this statement I came across that says um, problems are not the problem, coping is a problem. So problems are not the problem,
Hmm.
coping is a problem. And in this case, especially if you're just engaging in unhealthy coping mechanism, that's the actual problem. Yeah.
Mhm,
So
mhm. Wow.
thank
Okay, okay. Thank you so much for that. You've left me with food for thought there. So thank you for that. We look forward to future interactions with you. So as we had our audience, those are the insights that you've gotten from our very able panelists today on unhealthy coping. We've told you what unhealthy coping is, how it looks like, how they even hide in our day to day activities, but most importantly, how it would morph from that to mental illness. And we want to empower you with even more tools on how to gauge how you're doing. And one of that is we have assessments on our website. Chiromo Hospital Group. You have assessments that you can do on your own at the comfort of your environment to gauge on how you're doing on different matters. Mood matters, suicide related matters, alcohol use matters. So we invite you to go to our website. It's tickering down at below www at chiromohospitalgroup.co.ke. You'll see a tiny banner on assessments. Please go and do those and gauge how you're doing. I mean, it never hurts to know where you are, and the next step to take would be seeking help if need be. And that is because your mental health is very important. So remember, your mental health comes first. We actually say there is no health without mental health. So remember that and take action to work on that. So I'm really grateful to the panel that has joined me today. I want to extend great regards to you, but I also would like to appreciate our audience for even engaging with us on the comment section. It's your examples, it's your experiences that guide us on how to be there for you. So we really appreciate that and we thank each and every one of you. We've come to the end of this conversation. In case there is anyone who is watching this and they feel like they need a form of support but don't know where to start, I'd like to direct you to our toll free number 0800 220 000. This is a crisis line that is available for anyone who needs urgent support and they don't know where to start. Please call us through this, and it is manned by a psychologist on the other end. So you're going to get the help that you need. With that said, I would like to bring this conversation to go on. All in all, thank you all the rest of the day.